county council and have spent all of her uh, public funding, and I guess that's it. So in other words, if her opponent raise more money and spend more money than she has, she cannot get additional funding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's because it's unconstitutional to have equal qualifying funds.
That's correct. In a recent court decision, case called Arizona Free Enterprise Club, um, the equalizing fund component was struck down as unconstitutional. So that is not being administered in the 2012 election.
So then when I'm looking at this so-called resolution, and the third resolve is incorrect, whereby it says equal qualifying fund. Is that correct? Did you see this amendment?
I did see that. I think maybe Councilmember Smart can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's referring to addressing the inequalities in the districts.
Different districts, and not necessarily that one raise more money than the other.
I think so. Is that correct, Councilmember Smart?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, Mr. Ikeda, what you're asking?
What happened is, you know, when you have this equal qualifying fund, you mean equal qualifying fund for all districts, or is it in an individual race where one raised more money than the qualifying fund? Where right now, like in Mr. Hoffman was describing his so-called friend that spent all of her money, and her opponent now hasn't spent any and might raise more money, that the state does not give additional funding to equalize everything.
Okay. I think you're referring to amendment number 1 in this series of amendments that we have. We have 5 of them, and under number 1 we talk about the current formula that is only to equalize funding for each candidate in each race. And Mr. Baldomero mentioned it earlier in his testimony. One district is allotted 42,000, another district is allotted 1,200. This amendment is trying to address the inequality of that. We have no say in what you're talking about because it is unconstitutional, but via court precedents in Arizona, as Mr. Baldomero mentioned. So the amendment that I think you're referring to is trying to equalize each district, having each candidate have the same amount of money. Therefore, the district, the candidate for District 2, they would all qualify for 20,000 as an example. District 1, 20,000, District 4, 20,000, to make each district qualify for the same amount of money instead of having the huge disparities that we see now based on previous election cycles. I think that's what your question is based on. Please clarify if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's more or less, it's correct, but you know, if your so-called statement is in your whereas, but be it resolved or further resolved, it's the that's what you're trying to dictate, and the other one is just background information. That's your fluff, and then the meat is in your further resolve. So you know, I think it has to be really clear because to me it's not clear.
I'm sorry. So are you claiming that we need to
Make
rework number
clear.
5?
Yes, make it a little more clear because although it states in your whereas, like I said, your whereas is supporting documents. I call it fluff.
Okay, if I may clarify, Mr. Ikeda, qualifying funds is what it's called when you qualify for it. What you're referring to is matching funds. So the wording here does match the vernacular that is used within the program currently. And what is unconstitutional is the matching funds aspect. The qualifying funds is what each person qualifies for if they meet all the requirements for the public funding program.
Okay, that kind of clears it up, but I still have some apprehension about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Ikeda, and thank you, Councilmember Smart, for your answers and comments. Ms. Floyd, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I support amendment as it's contained in Communication 787.6. And I'd like to just go through this from a person who is on public funding right now and one of the people receiving the greatest amount of money in the campaign, along with any competitors I may or may not have at this point in time. When I first sent legislation forward to the state and asked for this public funding, I had suggested an amount of $10,000 per candidate, per district, up to, I think, a maximum of 3. That gave us $270,000, and then the extra $30,000 was in case some district got $4,000. At this point in time, I would say $10,000 per candidate is too low. But I do want to say that I think it is grossly unfair that a candidate like myself gets $42,000 and a person in a different district gets $1,200. It needs to be equalized. Every single candidate who's on the public funding needs to get the same amount of money. Now, then there's a slightly different situation in District 9. District 9 won in the last few elections was won in the primary. So in order to get the public funding, and you got your 200 signatures and you got whatever money you were entitled to for the primary. But because it was won in previous elections in the primary, there was no money spent in the general. So the person running in District 9 at this time gets 0 funds out of the campaign fund for the general election, while her competitor is able to continue, because he's not on public funding, getting more and more money attracted to his campaign and can spend it. This is also unfair. My suggestion is that, one, we pass this legislation, that the money that it should be equalized. Every candidate on public funding should get the same amount. I personally would recommend nothing less than $15,000 split up, $10,000 for the primary, $5,000 for the general, or in the case of the $20,000 that Tony has talked about, $12,000 in the primary, $8,000 in the general. That would be fair. Every public funded candidate would get the exact same amount. The problem with the $20,000 is it comes up to a need of 27 candidates at $20,000 each is $520,000. So that number, that $300,000, would have to be increased to $500. We may or may not have sufficient funds in the campaign funds for that. But I think that we do need to pass this bill, and we need to do, maybe other things to get the money up there. It's just not fair for one person to get all of the money and another person to get next to nothing. That defeats the purpose of campaign financing by public funding. So I still think we need to pass this. The other thing is, in Section 3, I have a discrepancy, what I perceive as a slight discrepancy. It is true that we set this up at the state level for 3 election cycles as this council passed the legislation, 2010, 2012, 2014. However, your statement says, whereas the Hawaii County Council Comprehensive Public Funding Program is set to expire in 2014. That is actually a truthful statement, but it doesn't expire until after the general election. It's 3 full election cycles, and you've left out set to expire in 2014 after the general election or after the 3rd election cycle. That's very important, because the way this is worded makes it look like it stops January 1st, and that would drop out the 2014 election cycle. I think that needs to be changed. So other than that, though, I think this should go forward and be passed. I also agree that with Ms. Smart, that in number 5, equal qualifying funds to all qualified participants doesn't mean matching funds. It actually means that we will equalize the amount of money to each publicly funded candidate in each district who's running and is qualified to get the funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. We are on Communication 787.6. It consists of 5 amendments, whereas clauses as submitted by Councilmember Smart. Is there anyone who would like to give comment from our HELO office, and so we can take advantage of our resource person, Deputy Baldomero?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Molinaro, you mentioned some measurable objectives in terms of this pilot program. Have you received any word or any indication from the state legislature in terms of them wanting a report, either from the Campaign Spending Commission or any other entity as far as measurable objectives regarding the program?
Actually, that has not occurred in either the 2011 legislature or the 2012.
Okay. But that's something, sounds like that would be reasonable on the legislature's part to hear back, especially from the Campaign Spending Commission, in terms of the numbers that you have spoken about. So you probably anticipate that, but hopefully.
My assumption is it'll occur after the pilot program ends, after the 2014 election.
My understanding is, yeah, this is to run 3 election cycles, so it'll be completed after the 2014 election. And is there anything else you wanted to add for the council's benefit as far as the program itself? Any concerns? Initially, when this first came up, I had some concerns about the first come, first served aspect. And you mentioned that there was 27 participants. Was it 27 this past election cycle?
In the 2010 election, there were 8 certified candidates. We dispersed 148,000. And then this year so far, well, actually this year the final numbers are 8 candidates, 215,000.
Okay.
So there is a cap for each election of $300,000. So we haven't gotten near that cap in the 2 elections.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because that was something that I was afraid of, that maybe you would have too many applicants, but it hasn't happened yet where we reached the limit. So, okay, that's good. I don't have any further questions for Mr. Baldomero, but I do have more comments later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. A reminder again that we are on the amendment, which is Communication 787.6, and some of our discussions have carried over into possibly the main motion. Mr. Baldomero, we understand that you have to leave very soon. You are in this motion to amend phase. Would you like to give comment before you have to trek to the airport?
No, thank you, Chair Colago, but I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Ms. Smart?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Baldomero for coming. I did talk to him on the phone in the recess, and I hope to have him available via phone when this comes up at full council. So while he's not going to be able to participate in the rest of our discussion once we move on, I would like to have him participate when it comes up again at full council to finish addressing concerns that council members may have. Thank you very much, Mr. Baldomero, for being here. Sorry I didn't know you were going to be available. Have a safe flight.
Thank you, sir. Please come join us at full council. Are there any additional comments or questions to the amendment? None? Deputy, if you could please call the roll on the motion to amend our resolution 280-12 with Communication 787.6.
Mr. Blas.
Aye.
Ms. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Queta.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Onishi.
No.
Ms. Smart.
Aye.
Mr. Yugal. Aye. Mr. Yoshimoto.
All right.
Chair Pelago.
Aye.
Chair Pelago, you have 7 ayes.
Thank you. The motion to amend carries. We're back on our main motion 280-12. As amended, Ms. Smart, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned when we first started, we do have Corey Payne with Voter-Owned Hawaii or Voter-Owned Elections, I forget which one it is, available. And as I mentioned when we first started this process, I did introduce this resolution by request from this organization. So I wanted to give Corey a couple minutes to address this resolution, why he requested it to be brought forward, and he did help us with the amendments to help address council members' concerns. So Corey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you so much for your patience. I know you've been waiting a long time, so I really appreciate you still being available. Please, you have a few minutes just to say a couple words, and so go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for working on this. Just a couple quick things. One, I want to talk about the formula, and then the need to, and the desire to change that into a more equal distribution model that Ms. Ford was talking about, Councilmember Ford. And then number two, I just want to talk about the discrepancies between the primary and the general, which has been alluded to by a lot of different people. And then, and I think, and I'll just speak to those two things and do it as quickly as possible. So number one on the formula and on the need to change. As many of you know, we did base this program off of successful models that were rolled out in statewide in Maine, Arizona, Connecticut, judicial elections in North Carolina, and several other jurisdictions, including municipalities, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Portland, Oregon. And they all use this formula-based model. Now, so there's an important thing to note here. We are supporting a more equal, as you guys call it, a more equal distribution, but what we don't want to do is lock in a specific dollar amount, and this is why. Let's go back to 1978, to the Constitutional Convention. A lot of you folks were around at that time. You remember what was happening, and you know, I've read through multiple times the floor discussions on this the partial public funding program at that time, and you know, Hawaii was ahead of our time when we implemented the partial public funding program. It was really a precedent-setting program that was instituted in '78 and then was rolled out in 1980 for the first time. And when it first was going into effect, it was amazingly effective. And the reason is this: the program has been, and hopefully always will be designed with one intention, and that's to give publicly funded candidates a competitive chance to win. And that's the aim of this platform. So the aim of the platform is not to try and equalize distribution of money across the board. That's not the intent. The intent is to give publicly funded candidates a fair shot in winning. And the one mistake that was made in 1978 is they locked in a specific dollar amount that was based on the number of registered voters in that particular jurisdiction. What happened over time is those money amounts that got locked in, because after inflation and after just changes in the nature of, you know, how important elections are and the amounts of money getting spent, now the partial public funding program does not provide a competitive amount of money for candidates, and as a result, this program is not being utilized hardly at all. There are token cases where candidates are using and winning with it, but by and large, there's not a lot of people using it, and most of the people who use it do not win because it's not a competitive amount of money. That's why in the be it further resolved, and I don't see it here in this amended reso, but it was in the previous version. It specifically states that the amounts should be equal, but also they should be based on a formula per jurisdiction. So in other words, you know, the amount that it takes to win a county council race for Maui County Council or Hawaii County Council is a very different amount than the amount it takes to win a race or be competitive for Honolulu Council. So, you know, while we do support everyone and we understand everyone's, you know, concern about the discrepancies, the formula per district, it just takes time. Eventually, if it had enough time, you would start to see equilibrium among the districts, and you would see appropriate amounts being dispersed per district. But you know, unfortunately there were some anomalies in there. District 8, when Mr. Greenwell ran, he reported spending $0. I think that was in I can't remember what year that was, but it was those anomalies that really threw off the trend. And anyway, we support everyone's desire to start to equalize the glaring discrepancies between some of the districts right now, and we're willing to do that. However, please note that there's two things to be careful of, and this will be reflected in the legislation that we propose for 2013, and that is number one, there does need to be some sort of formula base that will make sure that the program stays malleable for one, inflation, and two, for changes in trends of just percentages of money being spent in elections. So there does need to be some sort of formula mechanism in there. And then the second is that there needs to be different amounts per jurisdiction. So obviously a House race, a Honolulu City Council race versus other council races. So the amounts should be reflective of what are the trends in those jurisdictions. I think you folks are really just, kind of honing in on the accurate, like an appropriate amount, which is, you're honing in on 15K, which would give somebody a fighting chance and allow them to get their message out there. And those are really kind of the numbers that we'll want to look at in the proposed legislation, but still have it based on a formula. But anyway, that's that part. As to the discrepancies in the primary versus the general, that's also duly noted, and we appreciate you bringing that to our attention as well. In the past couple sessions, we submitted legislation that attempts to address that issue, and we looked at a couple of different ways to do that. One would be to offer up like a blanket amount, like as you folks suggested, $3,000 to $5,000 for races where it happens to go into the general, just to give, just so a publicly funded candidate isn't standing there with empty pockets. So we plan on adding that in the new legislation this year as well, going into 2013, and I'll be sure to share that with you folks as we get that fleshed out here in the next, hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have that draft of that legislation ready. So again, those are just the two primary things I wanted to put out there. And I'm happy to take any questions, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Payne, for being a valuable resource person to this committee. Ms. Smart, anything additional?
I yield. I just wanted to give him the opportunity to speak since he was the one that asked for this to be introduced. I encourage other council members to ask Mr. Payne questions.
Thank you. Thank you
Mr.
for
Hoffman.
coordinating this effort, and thank the staff for the Ramtier forms. We really appreciate that. Hilo, any comments to this item? We're on 280-12 as amended. Thank you, Ms. Floyd.
Thank you, Corey. I'd like to hear your comments on something. One of the things that Ms. Smart has requested is that this program be extended to 2020, and I agree with that. Again, when the council passed my legislation and did 3 election cycles, it was my opinion, which I promoted to the council, that was the minimum number of election cycles to iron out some problems. And we're going into the second election cycle with the general here. And we're finding places that needed to be fixed, and the formula obviously needs to be changed. But I would like to hear your comments on extending this to 2020, because it seems to me, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna support this, but I think might be just a wee bit premature going to the other islands in the state at this point, because we do recognize that there are problems. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. Hilo, comments, questions?
I asked if Corey would like to comment on extending to 2020.
Sorry. Mr. Payne, please.
From our perspective, I guess we're looking at the ultimate bottom line here is that the democratic experiment we're at a crossroads, and we see it as a crisis situation, honestly. Especially when you take into account the appointment of John Roberts to the Supreme Court and the sort of mechanical dismantling of election money and politics laws in the last 100 years. It was clear from the get-go that this was come sooner or later that people are going to realize how fundamentally problematic this is going to be for the economy and for the public interest in the long term if we continue to let the most wealthy entities in our country, essentially, we're talking about purchasing laws. So, I completely understand the desire to say, let's let this thing roll out till 2020. From our perspective, and from, the perspective of the people who support the organization I work for, we don't really have the luxury of dilly-dallying around until then, until we think about maybe expanding at that point. The original legislation, which was House Bill 661 in 2008, it only had one election cycle in the original law. And then we did go in and talk to the Judiciary Chair and the Senate side, and we convinced them to add 2 more election cycles, just so it could buy us time to sort of build up some support to make a push for it statewide. If there is legislation going to 2020, I don't think we would come right out and oppose it unless that interfered with our desire to expand it statewide.
All right, thank you, sir. I yield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Payne, for availing yourself to this committee. We appreciate it very, very much.
Mr. Chair?
Are there any additional comments? Mr. Onishi,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. I guess this question is to Corey. And my question would be, have you folks or have your group worked with the other counties to get this public funding going?
We have worked with the Maui County Council. We haven't worked with them in a couple of years now, but we're beginning conversations again with some of the other counties. But I would say that's all in the sort of incubation phase. There's nothing solid on the ground yet.
Okay, because the way the resolution states is like it's supposed to be like a statewide, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so if you're not in contact with the other counties, how can you make that like a statewide effort?
We've proposed in the past, starting off with just House and Senate races. And, ultimately what we're going to propose, I guess the quick answer is that when it comes to election laws, it's something that is up to the state. And that's how it is in every state. Because the assumption is that because election laws are so fundamentally important to the integrity of the democracy, that particular part of the legal system is delegated to state authority, the same way that the drinking age is so important to the welfare of the public that it's up to the federal government to make those decisions, not to the individual states. So at the end of the day, that's really a decision for the state legislature. If they want to upgrade and modernize this old partial public funding program and replace it with something that's actually going to be useful.
Okay.
But I do appreciate the comment, and it's well noted that we need to make an effort.
Okay, I have this last comment to you. Okay, so it mentions for legislative efforts to expand comprehensive public funding throughout the state. So so my question is again, so you folks got reached out to Kauai County, Oahu County, to get them to get involved too?
We, at this point, we're focusing more on the citizens and educating them about the benefits of the programs. And once we have those people understanding the program fully, at that point, for us, it would be the time to start to approach the councils.
Okay, because my
I do appreciate, yeah.
Because my thing is, if the other counties are not going to support the statewide, then it's just like one county, Hawaii County, is trying to stress this. But if you have the other 3 counties supporting this, then I think then you can see a movement.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Right. Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any comments or questions?
Just
If
one.
not, I would go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Just very briefly, and it's not so much to Corey, but I want to make sure that he's aware of this. I support this resolution, but with the caveat that something has to be done to prevent the situation we have in our district in Kohala regarding the equalizing of the funding in some way, shape, or form, to prevent that situation from ever occurring again. And clearly, that's got to be addressed by the state legislature. I don't need, Corey, I don't need a comment. I'm just stating what I feel is a matter of fact and something that the state leg has got to address, regardless of whether this program continues to 2020 or is terminated in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you all. Forgive me for trying to facilitate this extra hard. If there are no more questions, I will call the roll at this time. Thank you all. Deputy Clerk, please, the roll.
Mr. Blas. Aye. Ms. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Ikeda.
No.
Mr. Onishi.
No.
Ms. Smart.
Aye.
Mr. Yugal.
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Aye.
Chair Pelago.
Aye.
Pelago, you have 7 ayes.
Thank you, Deputy. Resolution 280-12 as amended moves forward to full council with positive recommendation.
Mr. Plugger, before we move forward, I'd like to thank Mr. Payne for being with us today. And before you hang up, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your patience. It's been a long day, and I appreciate you being available to answer council members' questions. With that, feel free to hang up whenever, unless you want to keep listening, but you're free to go. Thank you very much.
Mahalo, Mr. Payne, and thank you, council members. Aloha. Our second order of business is Communication 786.2. This is Resolution 279-12, Draft 2. It amends the rules of procedure and organization of the Council of the County of Hawaii by amending Rule Number 13, Public Statements and Testimony relating to video testimony. Amends Rule Number 13, Public Statements and Testimony by adding provisions regarding the submission of video testimony from any member of the public. Introduced by Mr. Hoffman, postponed July 31st, 2012. Postponed September 5th, 2012. Please note, there is a pending motion by Mr. Hoffman, duly seconded by Mr. Yagon, to approve Resolution 729-12 as amended. I will read the communication. And Communication 786.1 from Councilmember Pete Hoffman dated August 10th, 2012, transmitting proposed amendments to Resolution 279-12. The amendments relate to "Be it further resolved" clause and item 2, video testimony. Again, it's a pending motion. Mr. Hoffman has the floor.
Thank you. I move to amend Resolution 279-12, Draft 2, with the contents of Communication Number 786.3.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to amend. Mr. Hoffman, to the amendment.
Thank you. Very briefly, this amendment complies with the suggestions made by council members previously. First of all, that the "Be it resolved" clause adjusts the scheduled date for proposed implementation. Clearly, we're not going to make the October date, so we've done this as far as the November date is concerned. And also in Exhibit A, which looks at the, I guess it's Section 13, when we put in video testimony, the council members have asked for pre-recorded video. We added the word pre-recorded, and to comply with Mr. Ikeda's suggestion regarding deleting 5 people, we did that as well. I think the rest of it is that's the only 2 points that we've amended, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Additional comments or questions? Ms. Ford?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Hoffman to make a clarification because I think something was misstated here during the testimony. Video testimony, excuse me, my understanding of this video testimony is that it will come in as the written testimony does. It will be numbered and it will be provided to the council members via the our internal network. But it will not be presented during the council or committee meetings. In other words, we're not going to play those video recordings during the meetings.
That's correct, Ms. Ford.
And Mr. Hoffman has just, are you on mic?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Hoffman, I thank you for clarifying that. I think that would otherwise really bog down the council committee meetings, and so I will be supporting your amendments. I appreciate Mr. Kay's amendment and the work you've done to make the amendments here, so I'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Thank you, Mr. Ikeda, for your comments earlier that led to this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman, for this communication 786.3. Additional comments, questions to the amendment, please? There being none? There is none. Deputy Clerk, if you could please read the amendment that moves forward through communication 786.3.
Take the roll, sir. I'll read the amendment.
Roll, please.
Mr. Blas?
Aye.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Ikeda?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
Aye.
Ms. Smart? Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Pelago?
Aye.
Pelago, you have 8 ayes.
Thank you. Resolution 7279-12 draft 2 is amended, and we're back to the main motion. Mr. Hoffman?
I don't have further comments. I think Mr. Al explained what can and can't be done. His suggestion is, I think, the same one that I had as well, that we consider, if we agree with the idea of continuing with video testimony, that the chair appoint a committee of the technical people who can sit down and discuss the details on how to implement this, instead of trying to do it in a committee or a council meeting. I certainly agree with that, so I don't have anything further to add.
Thank you, sir. This committee takes this opportunity to thank Mr. Hoffman for bringing together a cooperative and collective effort that brings us to this successful juncture. We wish also to take this opportunity to thank Director Mark Al from IT for his comments and for his support. With that, Deputy, if you could please read the roll. Resolution 279-12 draft 2 as amended.
Mr. Blas?
Aye.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Ikeda?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
Aye.
Ms. Smart? Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Pelago?
Aye.
Chair Pelago, you have 8 ayes.
Thank you, sir. The motion carries, and this resolution, as amended, moves the full council with positive recommendation. Thank you all very much, committee members. We are at the end of our committee session. I take a motion to adjourn at this time.
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed. We are now adjourned for this session. Thank you all.